I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag.
of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
all.
Thank you, Peg.
No problem. It's the echoing that's a little disconcerting.
Yeah, we should be muting ourselves if we're not talking. It's probably
Hi, Bob.
Okay, all right. Melissa, how you doing? Okay,
I can say hello.
what, okay. Did everybody read the minutes, the public minutes, remote public hearing for Wednesday, June 24th, 2020?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, June 24th with corrections sent to Tammy already.
I'll second.
Thank you. And Doug, I know the last one you wanted to know where money was coming from.
There's 3 of them.
Right. And I did not put them in or change it for this one. So we had the paving,
On page 3.
yep, the grease trap and the copier machine. Yeah, okay, so I don't know, do you want me to just make sure that we add, they were coming from the operating budget?
Should be, yeah, that's what Nate said.
Okay,
You
All
okay
right.
with Nate?
What were the 3?
paving,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
grease
paving,
trap,
copier, and grease traps are all coming out of it.
right,
Yeah,
right. So I just want to make sure that's added to the minutes, Tammy, so that's another change for you, my dear, wherever you went.
5A, 5C, and 5D.
Any other changes? I think I changed an and.
What happened to B anyway under 5? There's no
What?
B. There's no B under 5. Minutes.
What?
It's all right. Okay, I got a motion and a second. I gotta ask, anybody with you, Peg?
No,
Nate?
no,
Emily? Okay. Tammy? Paul?
No.
Jen? Earl?
I guess you can hear her.
Yeah, Jan?
Dog's behind me.
Uh-oh. Bob?
I'm here with, my husband is also here.
Okay. He's not the cat though, is he?
No, he's not the cat. The cat's here too. but-
Okay, I don't know everybody else's name. Okay, I vote yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
And Emily, okay? Everybody okay?
Emily, if you're gonna chat, I will check on.
I can hear.
Okay, moving to the remote non-public minute meetings.
I will make a motion to approve the non-public remote minutes of June 24th with changes sent to Tammy. Minor, I mean, I don't think there were any changes to the actual minutes, but the heading was needed to be changed, so.
I'll second.
Oh, okay. Anybody else got any corrections? Aye. Peg?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Got one more.
I will make a motion to approve the remote minutes of Wednesday, July 8th with no corrections.
Second.
Oh, okay. Does anybody else have any corrections? Aye. Peg?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Earl, I think you're up.
Okay, as you can see, I'll give you folks a chance to take a look at it, and we'll be sure he hasn't done it on the Facebook thing. Tammy, you can post all the info regarding the work the task forces have done regarding the opening of school. We're going to go into the areas here. And as you can see, there's a great deal of information about reopening school in the fall. The 4 task forces have been working very hard for a long time now as we've given word to the board that we worked on this. And as you can see here, the guidelines for the reopening of school are there. The various guidelines in terms of being safe and instruction and the impact upon the townsfolk and the people that will work, and weighing in the risks, the framework, and we're trying to be equal to all of the students throughout each grade. And again, everything we've done has been a phase-in. When we ended school last year, we had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. What has happened is, as we have explained and we'll discuss as we go through, in July and August, we have had about 10%, a little more than 10% of the students in school. They have come into school, and the rest of it has been remote. So therefore, the hybrid model has been used as a trial run, as a pilot run, to see how that would do. And as we go through each of the task forces and each of the committees, we're looking to broaden the scope of what we've done, find out what has worked best, what has not worked best.
I have a question for you, Earl. That 10%, has it been at the high school or at the elementary?
It's been primarily middle high school, but there's been elementary students as well. And as we go around with Jan and John's report, that's a good question, Doug. We'll speak about that. And then right now, we have Model 1, Model 2, and the third one, as we've said. What I'd like to do first, and we'll revisit a lucid compendium of the ideas in each of the models. And you have the various spheres going around Model 1, Model 2, and 3. We're going to talk specifically about each of those areas and take our time through it, so that is a complete understanding of where we are at the current time. But Cafe, they're kind enough to come. That's one of the 10 spheres. So I will let them explain what the plan is in terms of fresh picks, just like they did in the spring. It's been phenomenal. We've had seamless food for our students, as you all know, from the time we left to remote in March, through all the phases and changes that we've had. And it's been very good for our students, and it's a stable area that we have provided for them despite everything else going on. So at this point, Chris, if you would be kind enough to explain. We met with Chris and his staff last week, and we went over all of this, and it's a constantly updating. I think flexibility is the key, but tonight we're trying to bring the board and the community up to date on the work that has been done and where we currently are. Even as of today, various phases, various aspects, checking on the health and safety, things are flexible, and as you all know, they evolve. So at this point, this is where everything is. Okay, I'll turn it over to him.
Okay, thanks, Earl. And I'm actually, in a second, I'm going to turn it over to Frank. Frank Gillespie's on your screen there. He is going to be your district manager in the upcoming year. I'm always involved, as you guys know, on the client relation part when it comes to the budget, that kind of stuff. In terms of operations, I'm not always involved with that kind of stuff. I jumped in this spring in terms of the off-site feeding operations. One, because we had some staffing shortages with the whole COVID thing blowing up. But then two, I was the one that worked with Stratford County CAP to arrange that program for multiple districts. So in the fall, Frank Gillespie is going to be your district manager. He's our manager of nutrition and training. He's also our lead dietitian, but he's very active in operations, oversees several accounts, and he'll be working with your on-site people this fall to get food service back up and running. So Frank, I'll kick it back over to you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Earl, and everybody. So when we met last week, we wanted to hear what the school district and what each school is going to look like come return to school. We've got a few different models that can fit remote learning. Just like Earl mentioned, we turned on the dime and produced food to send home to students, and we can do that again. And we're fully prepared to meet your model, the hybrid model, where some students will be dining in the cafeteria and some students will be staying at home. The facilitation of the delivery model to the home, that's something that we partnered with you guys when March happened. And, that's what we're going to need to do, is to kind of develop the mechanism for the students that are at home, how we're going to get the food there. We talked last week potentially about sending food home on the buses, depending on what your hybrid looks like. We've heard a lot of different models on 221. So whatever really works for you, we'll make it work for us. Our team is all coming back. So we're fully prepared to facilitate the service, whatever it may look like, quite frankly.
And if I can jump in with a couple of things on that. So just so you know, and I know, Peg, this was a big concern of yours in the spring, with the remote learning this fall, the off-site meals are going to have to be done by students' meal benefit eligibility. That area eligibility that we were able to gain with working with CAP of Stratford County, and then that USDA finally implemented for everybody, that won't be around this fall. It was based on what's called Seamless Summer Option, which is the USDA's program that they also use for unanticipated school closures. USDA is not considering remote learning this fall an unanticipated school closure because it's coming. So those meals will be done by meal benefit status rather than free meals for everyone.
Okay, so that's only for the free and reduced lunch kids that...
So all kids would be able to participate in those remote learning meals. They would just do it by their benefit status. So the free kids would get the meals for free. Reduced kids would possibly be liable for 40 cents. I will tell you that there's been some talk at our corporate office about us possibly covering that 30 and 40 cent part for the reduced students, but then the full pay students would have to pay their normal meal price.
Okay. All right. My other question, Chris, is Stratford County stepping up at all this time around, or just through the summer, through the end of August?
No, Stratford County, and I've already talked to Betsy, Stratford County is definitely done at the end of August.
Okay.
Their normal program is just the summer. And during the school year, they're so busy with all the other things that they do. And especially at this time with helping people with rent assistance. And I don't know if you heard it, but the ban on evictions is coming to an end, but there's a program to get people financial help if they need it for their rent. And that goes through CAP. So CAP has got a lot of other stuff to do, and Betsy said they really can't do anything with food past the end of the summer.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so to Chris's point, Peg, really we just would need to develop a good system of communication to the families and who's participating on the remote side. Obviously, when they're in school, the system there, we're going to try to make it as touchless as possible. So we talked about last week, maybe issuing students their own student ID cards and having a scanner at the cash register. So they're just pushing it under a scanner to avoid any pin pad use, any back and forth. I think we can really streamline that process. Obviously, there's the communication piece and the kind of the nurturing of the student to this is the new way. One of the things we're also doing is kind of simplifying our menus to get our feet underneath us and really to get everybody acclimated as quickly as possible. The sections that we typically would offer the made-to-order deli station is going to go away. We're going to do packaging in our meals, so when students come up and want a pizza meal, it's already going to be almost pre-plated, that we're going to be able to be almost like a concession where we're pushing them out a little bit away from the typical offer versus serve model, just to try to facilitate a quick, expedient service and minimize those decision-making processes, especially for those younger students. We want it to really just be a handoff, let them decide if they want the milk, which is not a required component, and just move through that line very quickly.
Yeah, because with implementing social distance practices in the line, even with a lower student population, we're just anticipating the lines to move slower. So by, simplifying some of that, enable the social distancing and make sure we can get the kids through the line in a timely enough fashion that it's not disrupting anything else.
Yeah, even on a regular school year, the first week to 10 days really is a reacclimation period for students at the lunch line. So we want to try to make it as simple as possible. I think having some familiar faces there, really having a presence during the opening period would really help set the tone. Our staff will be wearing masks and following all the safety protocols, so we'll be walking the walk too, and setting the right example. And I know the staff is really excited to see students again. It's really a big part of the joy of their position. So, I think we're really prepared. We just want to keep working with you guys, communicating to see exactly what you're planning. So when we get into our buildings, we have a good idea of the plan and flexibility, as Earl mentioned earlier, and as the governor said, that's what we are. We're able to pretty much pull anything off any day and get our students fed. We'll fix it a little bit better the next day, and 3 days down the road, if everybody's working together, we'll have a seamless, process in place.
I just have a question. On the kids being in the cafeteria, are you going to find that we're going to have to increase the time that the kids are in the cafeteria because of the process?
Well, I think with only the 50% of the students in there, I think we'll probably be hitting our marks where we were last year as far as expediting service. And also some of the strategies that we've had in place with kind of packaging and bundling the meal. I think that will help the process along very quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cafe Services. I appreciate you
Sure.
working with us and making sure that everybody is safe and.
The one thing I will say is the sanitizing of the tables between meal periods. That's really going to be something that we're going to be, looking for probably some support. I'm not really sure how it flows there right now because I'm fairly new to the account. Obviously, we have some things to do, but I think collaboratively we'll have all the appropriate chemicals to do so. But that's going to be a big part of it, is when students leave, to spend that 5 to 7 minutes getting stage set, all the touch contact points, just wipe down with a nice sanitizer solution before we bring in the next group of students.
That raises another question. Will we have to increase manpower in the cafe?
We're not planning on it at this time because it is the lower number of students, because you've got the 2-1-2 model. So, depending on how the delivery of the offsite meals goes, we may not even be using any hours on Wednesdays. or very few, because you don't have kids in the building except for maybe, some limited students. So we're going to be able to kind of work our schedule within our budgeted hours and should be able to match those hours not only to our normal schedule, but maybe even a little bit less depending on the participation volume. And that's something that we'll actively monitor as we get this up and running.
Yep. The other thing I'm going to do is look into the FFVP program. There is some funding remaining from last school year that carries us through September. And then we'll see if we're getting the next grant for the current school year. But we're working with some of our produce vendors to do a lot of packaged, portioned fruits and vegetables. So it would really be easy to facilitate that in the classroom and also facilitate that for students who are doing the remote learning. So I think that's another level of, nutrition that we can provide to our students, over the course of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you all have my phone or my information, contact through the SAU. So if you do have questions that come up, please shoot them my way. I get to learn you guys and we can all work together to get this done.
And they'll still meet with the administrative team because, as we said, we have to adjust to what we decide to do in the end. We have a tentative idea that we're taking a look at tonight, and then there's a host of intricate things with every aspect of each phase of everything we do. As you'll see tonight, the model, this is just one aspect of the very many, but we want to thank them a lot in that as the board meets, we will update you on this as well. And we can't thank them enough. They've been with us right since March, and it's really worked out really, really well. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Earl.
Okay, going back, let's revisit the model that the ones we're taking a look at. As you can see in your notes that we sent you, and what we're going to continue to do in that it's a flexible, it evolves, and there's always more info that we get. And as the state changes some of the guidelines and so forth, we had the same thing happen with the grads. Jan came back with 3 different plans, and we kept redoing and redoing and redoing. And this is what we've been doing within the administrative team and the task forces. We have spent untold hours on every detail of this, and we continue to do so. So tonight, just like with the cafeteria, the intent is for the board to fully ask us, be a partner in this, as the staff will be, as the parents will be, we're trying to provide the best education for every student, but the health and safety of everyone that walks in the doors. Just like I said in what I had sent, in locus parentis, we're in place of the parent. The moment a child walks in the school door, at which point a school bus arrives to ensure that they cross the road and get on the bus, we are responsible for that child. We are and we're working, and we'll talk about the instruction. But the philosophy is very clear. The reality of this is that you can make up a gap in education, a gap in learning. You can never make up a life. So we're looking firstly at the health and safety of the staff and the support staff, in all that is concerned. So what I'd like to do is let's look at model number 1. As you look there are the 10 aspects or more remain the same. And they talked about the food area. The most important part of the remote area is, you know, we were cast into it in 3 days. We were in remote. We learned a lot from it. No one could ever say that in-person instruction doesn't far surpass the remote. You know, obviously the styles that students learn may adapt themselves to VLAX or to online or whatever the case is. But we all know that in-person instruction is a real key, is where we want to get to. But we want everyone to be safe, obviously. Let's look at model number 1. And Jen, why don't you discuss the tech area, because that is the bulk of what this is. So Jen, do you want to take us through that?
Sure. So we took the survey results and just reviewed them, and they're in your minutes. But basically, I wanted to just emphasize that going one-to-one was really the best move that we could have made. Only 117 people took the survey, meaning a total of 208 students. So basically, half of our students took it. There's no way to tell why the other families didn't take it. But it could also be due to lack of technology. But 31% do not have one-to-one computers. And then if the parents also have to work from home, it actually increases to 37%. And then more than half, at 67%, could not access all of the sites that they needed.
Mommy,
I'm gonna mute it, you gotta go. So in order for us to have one-to-one, it really makes it so that more than the 70% who couldn't do it. So there's no way that they could have, you need to go.
Mommy.
There's no way that if 70% of the students couldn't do it, then that's hard for them to be successful at home. So for next year, we're one-to-one. We have cases already in. The computers are on order, and all students will have a computer and an own case next year with identifying features on it so that everybody knows who it is. The case is made so that the computer will stay inside the case. So there's not like taking it out, mixing it up with anybody else's. You open up the case and the case holds the computer. So basically there's going to be no touching or concerns with that. The intention is they'll be charged at home, and so they don't need to bring the chargers around either. So that's basically it.
Question. When are the computers due?
So they're due early August, and Back Bay feels confident that we can do it in just a few days. So we should have them done. As long as they get in early August, they should be done well before school starts. And then we decided that we would pre-print out cards with a student's name and cohort on them, and we would put them in boxes and in the classroom, so it's really easy to distribute them. So we'll do all of that in August for them.
So what amount are we getting? 410? 410 computers?
Yes, I want to say 417, but 410 sounds right, yeah. And then in addition to the ones that already were used and need to be reconfigured, that were used for remote learning, as well as the ones that are now being used for summer school. So between all of those, there'll be enough.
So this means that every kid in our school will have a computer?
Correct. They will have a Chromebook that can access everything that they possibly need.
Okay. Tammy, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to make sure my son Tyler has one already. I just don't want you to put him on the list because he won one last year.
So every student will be issued one, and then we can work from there if students feel that they don't need it. But we're not going to have students, everyone's going to have one, because we can't have home computers going on our Wi-Fi. If home computers go on our Wi-Fi, that's when we open ourselves up to liabilities, where we have control over in order for it to be acceptable, we need to have control over what they can access that is also going to hit our Wi-Fi so that it doesn't have any security breaches, that type of thing. So they're gonna, even if he has his own, they still have to use the school computer at school.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
other board member? Peg, go ahead.
Jen, I did to hotspots. I did read about looking at more hotspots for some of the parents through Verizon, which I thought was interesting. Anybody have any idea, or Jen, do you know anything about Atlantic Broadband continuing their free internet? Should I contact them again?
You certainly can. I know what happened was the governor and commissioner, they were reaching out to the companies. They were offering a grant and more money for them to build more towers to offer those things. But it had sounded to me like it wasn't going to be anything immediate. So this was something that we really needed to look in ourselves.
Okay. All right. I will be more than happy to reach out again and let you all know.
Thanks.
Any other board members have any questions? for Jen?
That's very, very key to this.
I
Yeah,
will
well,
say out of the survey results, it was only, I believe only two, I mean, again, only 208 students took it, but only 2 had access to free Atlantic broadband.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it doesn't go away, you know, that they continue it. So
That would be nice. Yes, if you can beg for that, please.
I will cry. That's how I got it the first time.
Thank you.
Hey, Earl?
Thank you. Going on, if we look at model 2 and 3, and this is where a great deal of discussion will come in because this involves in-person. As I said before, we had at least 10% of the students come in, but this, even in the hybrid model, it's a cohort model, as I previously explained to you. So basically, it will go around. There's a lot of explanation that's involved with this. And it's called a cohort. And as we talked about before, a cohort is a specific group of students. Now, this will take a lot of configuration because it will go through each part of it. I'm giving you a look at the whole, and then we're going to break it down into parts so you can thoroughly understand and ask questions just as you've done thus far on each of the aspects. What it would involve is Tim, who has already begun this, ascertaining who will be on the bus. So for example, you have a chart in the work that we gave you. Tim did what would look like a maximum. He's on vacation this week, but he would look at the maximum. The maximum, but they're not at 6 feet, bear in mind, would be 25 or 26 students. They would wear masks. Masks would be mandatory for them to wear. If you live in the same home, you can sit in the same seats. So you could sit across. Right now, we're looking at, and again, we are looking at if it does work. Having the cohort, we assuredly, no question, if you have more than one child in your home, like some of you have many students in your home, all of those students that you have will be going to school that day. Now, we're looking at the possibility. We know we can do this in the elementary. We're going to try to get, like if you live in Milton Mills, try to get all the Milton Mills kids in school. We'll have cohort 1 or cohort A or the red team, whatever you want to call them. Cohort 2, group 2, the gold team whatever you want to call them. I feel like I'm at camp. So the one cohort, we're going to try to get it, if we can, to get all Milton Mills kids, for example, here the same days. What that would do is it would form pods of those students that people would have help with childcare right around them. They could, have kids, watch each other's kids. Also, they could study as a group, and they could have study groups. And this way, it also, in terms of spread, we're hoping nobody catches this, but it would contain the spread. So the big thing is we know the science, you test and you trace, and you got to be safe and you got to be smart and all that. All that being said, but this would help community spread if we have to deal with community spread. So it actually is one where the cohorts would help with pods, would help with childcare, and would have a control over community spread in trying to trace. So that is something we're going to work at, but we got to, once we all get some type of agreement, if that is a model that the board sees as a feasible way to go. Now, also, we're only looking at, if we go this route, at September. We're not looking beyond September. We would like to be in a position that we could spend from now till we start school with getting information out to parents, being able to logistically look into that cohort, being able to ascertain if that pod thing where all, for example, Milton Mills kids are together on those 2 days. So within each of these models is the re-imaging, is incredible amounts of detail. If we're going to do this right, and people are going to stay safe, and students are going to have the maximum chance to learn. So going on now, what I'm going to do is firstly, the Wellness Committee Task Force is an overlap to some degree with the facilities and operation. I've talked a little bit about the transportation, and most importantly, the capability and the capacity of what transportation could possibly send. Any plan we ultimately have for in-person instruction, just like graduation, will be approved by the school lawyer, by the Department of Ed, by the Primex attorney, and through the health department. So all of those aspects regarding health and safety, all those boxes will be checked to ensure the maximum amount of risk. And you have that chart in there, that flow chart, which we had made up. I developed that, where it shows each of the models and the degree of risk. The degree of risk in the remote, the degree of risk in the hybrid, and the degree of risk if we fully go back to school. So let me turn it over to Bob, who has been a yeoman's job in terms of screening, sanitation, PPE, working with the administration, and we've been working on this for weeks. So Bob, can you give them an update?
Sure will. Can everybody hear me? You good? All right. I want you to jump ahead to page 18, and you'll be able to follow a little bit of it.
We have no page numbers, my dear.
I did.
It says at the top, District Facilities and Operation Task Force Update.
Okay,
Okay. So the three areas that I've focused all my energy in is in temperature screening, PPE, personal protective equipment, and sanitation. A lot of people use sanitation and disinfecting interchangeably. They do have distinct differences, and that'll get woven into our discussion, okay? But let me start with temperature screening. We started temperature screening and started prototyping our whole check-in procedures many months ago now, which is crazy to think about how long it's been. But anyway, going forward, we'll continue to do temperature checks on the buses, and any of the walkers and drop-offs. Those students will be checked at the front, at the main entries that we designate for them. Parents are going to be expected to do a temperature check and screening at home, because they're going to know that we're going to check on the bus and reject the child or reject a child at the front door. So they need to be on their toes. Staff will take their temperatures at home. There's been some discussion of training them, not only for the temperature taking and just the whole health check, but they should be able to self-certify themselves every day and reduce a lot of paperwork if we train them to the methodology of what they need to do each day. Should a child be sick and end up sick during the day, teachers will be instructed, trained to actually call a nurse so that we can make sure that we have space available and be able to receive the child to the nurse's office. Any questions on any of that part?
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, on all the buses and all the checkpoints, we gonna have enough thermometers?
The bus, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We were very blessed that we've been able to pilot a lot of the work that we wanted to do with our summer school program. So we've been able to do the temperature check on the buses for the summer. So we're already doing that. Yeah, pretty cool.
Anybody else have a question for Bob? Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. PPE, it's pretty broad subject, and it'll get woven into a lot of procedures and training. But where I've centered all my attention is looking at disposable masks, and with the help of Jen, she and I have been looking, she's been doing 99% of that research on reusable face masks. What we've opted to do at this point in time, as long as the reusable masks are 2-ply, is we would like to purchase some of those. And Jen, if you could just comment a couple of comments on that, please.
So you guys already know we bought these for the new staff. We're gonna get these for MES staff, so they have a little RAM and say MES. And then we're combining the 2 RAMs to get every student, and every student will get 2 of these, and then every staff will also get 1 of these. So then there'll be everyone in Milton School District will get 2 reusable 2-ply masks. I had my kids wear them to make sure that they would fit all ages, and we worked with a company. The more we get, the lower they cost. Plus, it's also from Olympia Sports, so we're helping a local community as well.
So that's all coming from grant money?
So it will be, yes, some from the CARES Act and some from Title IV, but it will all be grant money.
Oh, thank you. Now, can other people buy extra ones?
I did not purchase it. I'm sure they can call them because they have already made them. So if you would like to buy one, I can tell you the cost. I believe it's $12 for them if you get them in, if you buy 1 to 12, but we're getting them for $7 a piece because we're buying over 1,000 of them.
Okay. Anybody, any questions for? Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
But aren't they so cute?
They are.
Those are cute.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jen.
That was
Bob?
important to me.
Sure.
Bob?
So on disposable masks, we made a purchase of disposable masks and sanitizer early in July. So that come out of the CARES Act, the grant, and we spend approximately $20,000 in that area. Currently, we're looking at reviewing the use of desk shields at the student desks. And what that would be is, it would be a shield that would be in front of them, you know, plastics around, if you will, two sides to it. The front would be see-through material that can be cleaned. The whole thing can be cleaned. And the panels on the side may or may not have windows in them, depending on what version we go with. But we're looking at those, and where that's gonna help is, depending on what we choose and recommend for social distancing, even in a situation, just thinking about wearing a mask all day long, all of us have had that experience. It gets really annoying. You need to, you know, we like to think about it as the mask break. So we're gonna think about how we weave that in, but, you know, throughout the whole day, to have that time you can breathe easier. But certainly if we had shields, and if we were still maintaining six foot distancing, then people could be sitting behind that in a classroom. They could be,
Oh, sorry.
excuse me. They could be sitting in a classroom, and then it can actually be used in the cafeteria as well when they're having their lunch. So I looked into that, and approximate cost for 50% occupancy would be about $20,000.
Peg, go ahead. Go ahead, Peg.
Money?
Yes, it's always money.
Yeah, where's the 20,000 coming from?
Jen,
CARES
back
Act.
to Jen.
CARES Act.
Okay, so there is still money. I mean, is that definite, or is that we've got to apply for the grant and hopefully they'll accept it?
I already wrote it in, and it's in budget review land right now. I mean, I think we're cutting it close, but those have already been approved in there.
Okay, good, thank you.
The shields and masks.
Tammy?
Yes, I do have people that are listening and are texting me, and they've texted me a question about the masks. They just asked about what about kids who have sensory issues that cannot wear a mask? What are you doing for that?
That's in another part of our plan.
Yeah, that's.
It's in a different part. Okay, we can wait
Yeah,
then.
that segues away from me, and that gets specific into,
Okay.
you know, a different discipline.
Okay, they're listening, so thank you.
Yep.
Good question, Peg. We'll put it in.
We do want these questions and want these input, because like I said, as we go, we're looking at every detail we can and hold them in. Hopefully most of what comes in, or you folks ask, we took a look at, but every lens is very, very key. Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Earl. So one of the other areas that I've had explored too is face masks. The face masks that we can purchase on the market would not be used in the healthcare environment. The face shields that we can purchase and have gotten some in-house have to be used with some form of a mask, either a 2-ply reusable or a disposable mask. So the reason I looked at those is because when we have special situations where a student can't, won't, or is not able to wear a mask, we can create the environment and still have the PPE for the service provider that's working with that student. So we'll be working on those plans as well.
So DBT is to be determined, but how to deal with it, right, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, so sanitation and disinfecting. I thought I'd read that in for you and differentiate between the two. You probably heard food service talk about sanitization. That will be a process that we'll be implementing during the day that minimizes bacteria. It can help a little bit with viruses. It does at least provide a wetting of the surface and mechanical wiping to kind of reduce virus that could still exist after sanitizing. So during the day, food service, my team, and teachers, and ultimately students properly instructed will have the materials to use in the classrooms and in the cafeteria at their disposal and to do sanitization through the day. Then off shift will be disinfecting. Okay, so we'll do all of the hard surfaces at night, and the disinfecting that happens during the day is done by a trained custodian on normal areas that we would do anyway and have always done. Bathrooms, water fountains, a lot of the touch surfaces. So we can still hit them on the fly during the day. In order to do that, when we think of all of the disinfecting that we're going to end up having to do, I wanted to talk sometime tonight, I don't know if that would be a non-public, about a request for additional help. So any questions in this area here?
Well, you can talk about additional help as long as you don't mention any personal names.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
public,
Yeah,
public should hear that.
I'm glad that Bob brought that up. I mentioned that in past school board meetings, that it's going to be, you know, you're hearing and you could see the enormous role that Bob's staff has to play in this. So it's going to be incumbent upon us in the hybrid model to add one staff, and hopefully if everything goes well and that's the direction we go with the hybrid, when we turn the page to the full amount of students, we'll probably need 2 extra staff.
When you say staff, you mean janitors?
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay.
So I'll have Bob speak to that. He's written up a bit of a job description, right, Bob?
Yes, I have. And actually to bring you up to date on that, Earl, and talking with my team, what we wanted to do was integrate a long-term sub that would be 8 hours per day. It would be 111 days. That takes us out 6 months. And then have the funding that would support step 8, up to a step 8, which is $13.08 an hour. So that person then, in talking with my team, would be someone that would get trained in both buildings and actually have dedicated space ultimately that they're responsible for to divide up the days and nights. You know, so anyway, in doing that, that gives us some flexibility. So if somebody calls out sick or wants a vacation day, somebody might have to work overtime a little bit in some areas to do that, but that person would actually learn both buildings doing that, which would be a big plus, because my nervousness is trying to keep all the staff available every day that we need them when the doors are open.
Ed, you have a question?
Yeah, actually,
Go
and
ahead.
I now have 2. With the permanent sub, are you talking about just 1, Bob, or are you talking about 2?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. In the past, I've often had a hard time filling a position like that as a long-term sub. And sometimes I do have to decide to end up breaking that up. So if I did end up doing that, I would still have the same goal where the parties involved would learn both buildings and would be primarily assigned to a space then in each. So if I found 2 to fill it out, that might help me. Some people are already working or have, you know, constraints at home and they're not able to work an 8-hour shift.
Okay, so bottom line, are you ultimately looking for 2? Would that be wonderful, or,
I'm looking for 8 hours a day right now.
okay, so either
And
2,
as
4
things-
hours, okay.
Yep, and as things would evolve, if we went to Model 3 fully open, then it's a big leap at that point in time, so it's definitely another person down the road.
Okay. All right, my second question, Chris and Frank from Cafe Services talked about cleaning the tables. And I
Yes.
know that this past year, before we were remote, that the cafeteria people did not have time, did not want to clean the tables. So we had to have custodial staff do it. Is that the same thing? I mean, do you have enough people? Because it's going to take a little bit more than just, a cursory wipe now.
All right, in the cafeteria, they have signed up to do the cafeteria cleaning. And it would include not only the tables, but it would include the floors, emptying the trash, cleaning the trash buckets and so forth, that kind of stuff, okay? What we believe we'll be able to do at the middle and high school is we'll be able to have the children, once taught, be able to clean the shield once we decide on that, and clean the space that they're in. So that minimizes then what their utility person in Cafe Services would need to do. They would simply need to do the floors, trash, and buckets.
Okay, so they are going to be jumping in
Right.
this year to help. Okay, good. Thank
Now,
you.
John and I haven't crossed that bridge yet, and we might expect that of some of the older children at the elementary school, but I expect the staff person, my staff would be helping Cafe Services in that situation.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Sure,
Is that it, Bob, for you?
I believe so. Earl, did I leave anything out?
No, that was excellent. We'll have you chime in as we go here, but Jen, can you touch on the coordination of the wellness committee, and that actually is morphing into almost 3 different strands of aspects that we're going into, so.
Sure. So the Wellness Committee has been working with Bob a lot on all of those aspects that he just discussed. And then we've been working very closely with the nurses to make sure that the nurse aspect is covered. They've made a great plan, but in addition to that, what are the responses from the facility side? And then also the Wellness Committee is, dealing with what kind of, whole child wellness we need to discuss too in regards to the social emotional learning and the fact that they've not been in school for a while, and how can we help support them. So we met today about really helping to alleviate stress and anxiety, helping them transition back to school and what this new normal looks like, and providing some resources to families on one, how to assess their child for these symptoms, but also how to properly take off, the PPE if they need to, washing, but also how to social distance. And then in addition to that, this new way of school and learning, and just being able to offer them some kind of social emotional learning and supports in that essence too. So it's really been kind of taking 3 different folds, but kind of putting some pieces together in order to provide all those services and supports for our school. So the biggest portion of that was really the nurses portion, which I know they're here today, so they could answer questions in regards to that, but really making sure that they have health screenings in place, when they should stay home, when we should have staff or students stay home. I think that was really important. How we can help educate our students on hand sanitizing, hand washing, making sure that we're clean, making our facial coverings are clean, how to wear them properly, what does properly even mean. And then if something happens where we suspect anything, being able to react as a staff and as facilities, and how we work towards that. Sorry. anything, that's kind of the gist. I don't know if you're looking for more specifics or how specific we want to get at this time.
That was very good. If they want to chime in at all, we asked for them to be on the Zoom as well. I know that they made a report, correct, Jen? That will
They did
have,
make a report, yep. They made a report, and then we were able to make an additional, more than what your packet has today, an additional wellness report as well that offers a little bit more details as to what kind of supports we'd like to offer the students.
so that, as we're saying, once we ascertain and we go from this point, we'll also enumerate what our specific response is. And we'll have a bunch of questions and answers of, you know, of what is done in each case and what folks can expect and what students can expect, what staff can expect in terms of the response. Okay.
Peg?
Good old Peg. Just a quick question, nurses and Jen. I mean, I totally understand the nurses' part in all of this as far as, you know, health screening and protocols and making sure everybody is healthy. But looking at the wonderful little diagram, it's talking about the social and emotional health and the whole child. I'm
Yes.
assuming guidance counselors are involved in this particular part, because I guess I
Yes.
look to them as the total child.
So the guidance department, including our social worker that we contract with and our psychologists, are all on that committee as well. So
Okay.
today we met and picked a program that we feel that we would like to train the staff on and have the staff be able to offer this social emotional support.
That's
K
love.
to 12.
Excellent, Jen. Thank you.
That's the one, right? Love, that's the choose love.
Yeah, it's the one the governor said, and it actually has a very specific unit that addresses COVID in particular and what COVID looks like at home and what it looks like now. And it emphasizes each part of that, which I think is really nice. It's what the governor recommends, but they made this for this particular traumatic event that they had. So it's going to be a really simple transition. And the school psychologist said it's really nice too, because now if that's what the governor is pushing, then some of these teachers will also have the experience that their kids are probably seeing the same exact, social emotional support in their schools. So it's going to be a nice transition for everybody.
Emily?
Thank you.
Emily?
Jen, is that program for something just to prepare teachers to think a certain way, or is that a program that some things they're going to teach kids? I don't quite understand.
So there are three aspects of it. There is a parent and community part, there's a teacher part, and then there's a like a student part. And basically there's it's a PowerPoint and a lesson plan for teachers, and they will have these conversations and videos with the students. There will be a training on it, so it's not going to be like, hey, just do this. There's going to be a training that explains each portion of it and really helping the teachers understand that as well. So this will be oriented towards social emotional supports for our students.
What age students is that for, Jen? Is that for all kids
K to,
or for older kids?
K to 12. There is a different lesson and unit for every single grade level. Kindergarten is simple as one lesson, and all the way to 12th grade, it goes up to 4 lessons for 12th graders. So it gets more extensive throughout you go. I read a lot of them. Kindergarten is as simple as, this was scary, but we're okay. We're here and we're okay. And then the 12th grade had more questions that were more related to, what were you thinking about this, and how did your life change, and how do you feel about going into the world, because you're going to be graduating this year with all of the world that is now different than what it was a year ago. So it doesn't go too deep for a student who can't really handle that, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's free, so if anyone wants to see it too, it's free. So you could log in and see any of them as well.
You send us the website?
It's, I believe, chooselove.org, but I have it right here. So hold on, let me tell you specifically.
While you look for that, I do have a question about, I know when I was reading the sort of guidance documents, they mentioned something in general about providing support for students in this time, but they mentioned specifically that for elementary kids, that should look like maybe extra time to play. So I don't know if that's getting too detailed at this point, but I'm wondering if for the elementary grades, that's something we're making sure to work into the day for each of our students and what that will look like. Because for the older kids, more about providing like more specific supports and guidance, but for the younger kids, it's more about providing them time to work it out themselves with play. So I don't know if that was entered any of the conversations.
To be honest, I think that would be the instruction one. It sounds very specific to what their particular curriculum would be, but I guess we can, I can ask them that. But real quick, the website is called chooselovemovement.org.
Choose
Love Movement.
I just texted it to
.org.
everybody in the chat, so you can get it from there too.
Oh, look at you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
But in the strands, just like I said, what Peg brought us to that, and actually Emily's point, that is one of those things, how Jen, like your area, I mean not your area, but our area, our task force area overlaps with Bob in terms of that. What she pointed out, Emily, could interact, could also fit within the instruction, but we can coordinate with that. Because I know today the commissioner on his Zoom at 12 o'clock, and Emily would be interested in this, he talked about the timber duck, being some aspects of that we could use if we choose to.
Yeah, that's a great resource.
And Emily, so we did have, so the funny part about the play part is I feel like we're now almost combining, and that's where the overlap really is important for us. So we talked about the play in facilities because then we need to make sure, so if they're choosing to do the play in small group with these materials, what does that look like among sharing materials? And now we're getting to the, how does facilities know that those materials were shared that day? How do we make sure that they're cleaned properly so they're not missing with other cohorts? And I know that in John's committee, they talked about John and Jan's instruction committee, they talked about, so how do I use manipulatives in my committee and what would that, in my classroom, what that looked like. So I think you're right, it isn't a bit early in those stages, but it is part of the conversation that we're having is how do we make that happen with making sure that all the protocols are also in place to make sure that everybody is safe.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Let's move on to the next task force. We can have Jan and John speak to that. They've been working closely with the staffs prescriptively in each school, and then district-wise, we have certain aspects that we're taking a look at. So I'll let John, you can start first.
Okay. The page 1 of the instruction committee report, which is part of the full report, talks a lot about masks and shields. I won't go into great detail about that because we've been talking about that a lot. I'll just give an example. We talk about the desk shields for Newt. MES, we're ordering more tables. We do have another second grade teacher this year. So we're going to need tables for that room. And there's only 2 other classrooms that don't have tables. So we're going to get tables for them so that they have the dividers that basically will split the table into 4. And we will have 3 students at a table. The 4th spot would be for a teacher or a paraprofessional to go over and work with students at the table. So that will always be left blank. And they will be wearing the mask. So just about masks and shields, the only thing I want to say is to the question that was brought up, a student with a sensory issue, we're looking at, this is kind of a general ed program, think of it that way, and that any student with any needs, like sensory needs, that may not be able to wear a mask, we will treat it like an IEP or an 504. we will definitely be looking at it individually. There's also the shields that kids could wear that maybe this is a little better on them that's not touching their face. We could do that. I mean, there are a lot of different things that we can look at for students. So that's all I want to say about Masks and Shields. Do you have any questions about Masks and Shields for during the day?
John Qua had written a section regarding masks and shields specifically for special ed students, so I think he could add to that too. Thank you for going back to that.
Yep. So that's all about Masks and Shields then. Jan, do you want to do social distancing? Next page. No, you're muted.
Claude, do you want to speak to Masks and Shields real quick while we're on that?
Yeah, for sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. So yeah, when I was considering, for our exceptional children, we are going to have to make exceptions. The route I was going to go is to kind of put it back to the teachers and just require that they have long pants, long sleeves. We can provide some jean jackets, face masks, regular masks, to make sure that the teachers, both in cases where students are going to be intolerant of wearing PPE and in cases where instruction requires proximity closer than 3 feet, we'll just make sure that, there's a lot of disinfecting. I didn't catch all the details, so if I'm saying the wrong one, Bob, I apologize. But there's disinfecting of materials and of spaces. There's, use of gloves whenever it's appropriate, and, proper training as far as how to remove those gloves. And then, like I said, personal protective equipment, probably to a greater extent for those teachers who are going to be, working with kids who, like I said, either can't do the PPE thing or need instruction in closer proximity.
Okay.
And the other thing is our nurses we are working with them to try to schedule mask breaks during the day, because if any of you are at jobs where you're wearing the mask all day, it is difficult. So we are looking to see when and where during the day and how we can schedule mask breaks for students. For social.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Earl, go ahead.
We should say this will be a good time. There's certain aspects of it we want to get the acknowledgement and as far as the board's feeling. Is the board agreed with our feeling that masks should be worn?
Emily?
I think so. I'm not totally sure what the policy is. I guess I feel like in general, masks are intended for when social distancing isn't possible. So the idea to wear masks all of the time and having to schedule mask breaks doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, I think we could just teach basic common sense rules. I know I saw on Facebook, like, those things you wear around your neck. I can't think of the word. Where you wear ID tags, lanyards. And where you can hook your mask to your lanyard, so that it's right there, so that you can easily access it. If you see a child that, hey, bud, can you just put your mask on? Something that maybe like a little bit more relaxed, while still sort of providing protection. Kind of like in restaurants right now. I mean, that's what you use. You leave your mask off. You get up to go to the bathroom, you put your mask on. So things that over time would become really quite natural for kids without having to be quite so rigid.
So your question to us, Earl, is we're going to make it mandatory to wear masks?
Yeah, we have the legal thing from Gordon, from the school lawyer, Jan. It's in the instruction part that Jan's going to get to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to get some discussion on that. Jan, can you read that? Regarding.
Yeah, well, there are some schools that once the kids are seated behind their shield, they're able to remove their mask. So that's why we're kind of asking you guys, like, definitely on the bus, definitely in the hallways, in the bathrooms. We're keeping the seats, that's under desk configuration. When I get to that room configuration, all the seats and desks will be at least 3 feet apart, where the round tables at MES will have shields on them, breaking the table into 4 spots. There'll be no more than 3 kids at a table, so a teacher and parent could sit with them as well. Whatever we decide on the masks, what our procedures and protocols are, what the attorney has said that students, well, Earl, can we get to how we're gonna join it and then it fits better in the other piece than just,
Sure.
okay. So we will cover that part. But for social distancing and cohorting, we're looking to divide our population in half. And as Earl talked about, trying to maybe keep communities and neighborhoods together. But we'll have then half as many students on the bus, in the hallways, in the cafeteria, and in the classrooms. They will be reminded to maintain at least 6 feet apart at bus stops when entering the building, in the hallways as much as possible. But again, our classroom seats, we're looking to do 3 feet apart. So 3 feet apart with a shield, or on the round table, 4 people to a table with a shield. We're going to try to keep students with the same cohort as much as possible. Easier to do in the elementary and middle school. A little bit harder to do in the high school because kids aren't all taking the same classes. But as much as possible, keep the same group of students together. We are looking at hallway traffic, the way that kids will be walking through the halls, keeping it, single direction, one side of the hallway, that sort of thing. We're going to encourage parents and teachers to keep at least 3 feet of distance from the students, but as Mr. Quag pointed out, there are times where you have to get closer to a student, or you may actually need to point where in the book or where on the sheet it is. But as long as they're not staying there for more than 10 minutes, and we're recommending no more than 5 minutes next to a person, you're still supposed to be, CDC guidelines is still, you're okay. Students will be assigned a specific seat to sit in every day. So same kids in the same seats every day. Again, that helps us with contact tracing if we need to go back to who they've been next to. But John, if you would do the next part.
Am I on the next page now? Student supplies? Yeah, here we go. All right. So student supplies. Students will not be sharing supplies. We will be issuing their own supplies. All new students will not use a locker to start the year. At MES, a lot of them have their own cubbies, or they have their own sections in the classroom to store their supplies. And all students will have their own device. So that's for student supplies. Library and gym use, we're in discussions. We talked about it the other day with Kirk Sharrow. He'll be discussing that about MES and what we're going to use for the library just for our own personal use. But as far as, and this is something the board is going to have to discuss, library and gym use, no members of the public will be in a school library or gym space until the end of the day. That's what we're looking at. We're trying to limit that use. Then hybrid learning environments. Parents will have the option to send their child on an alternative day schedule, or have their child access instruction fully remotely. Staff with an underlying health circumstance will provide instruction and support remotely. Teachers will provide daily instruction to the students assigned to them in school or on a synchronous remote schedule, while also placing assignments on Google Classroom for students to complete at home. We're still developing the full model. We're looking at MES. We're looking to see exactly what the alternative day would look like and what the remote model will look like.
So parent, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the new will use the same 7-period schedule every day. MES will mostly be self-contained.
So parents, basically, they get the option of choosing for their student, and if they have more than one child, it can be different depending on the child, but the students can be on a remote option, not coming into the building at all, or they're coming into the building on an alternate day type of schedule. If they're remote, they could do it a couple of ways. They could do it fully remote on VLAX, getting support through that program, or they could do a synchronous schedule. So let's say that they had biology at 7:30 in the morning, they would be able to link in from home, live streaming the lesson with the teacher getting that lesson at 7:30, be part of the class discussion, ask questions, that sort of thing. But they would have to do it synchronously with the same as the teacher's schedule is for that course. So they get the option to do that. And then once we finalize the mask wearing procedures, if we have a student who just can't follow those procedures or protocols, we'll give them reminders. But if they can't comply with what the procedures are in the building, then they would need to do the remote option. So that's the piece where the lawyer gave us the feedback that we, in order to maintain the safety and health of everybody in the building, are able to set these protocols in place, and who comes in the building just needs to agree to those protocols.
Let me go to Peg next and then Emily. Peg, then Emily,
Okay,
and Emily.
going back to student supplies, and I don't know if this is really just more for MES, John, but somebody recently posted something on Facebook about donations for school supplies, and put a box or a bin out by Milton Hardware. And I did stop at Milton Hardware for something else the other day, and there was very few supplies in it. But is that something that certainly would be helpful if we cannot share magic markers and stuff? I mean, you got your package, I have mine.
What happens usually, and I can even have Susan speak to this because that is part of the town. What they do is they collect school supplies and book bags, and we usually have book bags filled with school supplies. And I believe that's who's collecting those, and then we have them available for students. Susan, you want to speak to that? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, we have, oh my gosh, probably 30 or more backpacks at school that have school supplies in them. So if someone's in need, we have a lot. We don't need any more backpacks because we have a lot of them.
But I was talking about just the supplies for each kid. I mean, if I cannot share my magic markers with John, then he needs a thing of magic markers. I need a thing of magic markers. Are there enough in the school systems that each one of us can have our own? I'm just thinking of parents who really cannot afford to send their child to school with, 40 pencils and magic markers and coloring pencils, and
there are supplies in the bags, right, Susan? Usually we
yeah.
get.
Yeah. You have more than 30 kids. Sorry.
Right, we do, but usually this is for parents who can't afford it. We distribute them then. It's on an as-needed basis. We're not doing it for every single kid.
Newt will still take supplies.
Right.
We don't have big piles.
If you just let me know.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Emily, go ahead.
I have a different question, but just on the same line as supplies. If we do list of supplies, can we just really encourage teachers to think it through and be specific? As a mom, I've sent my kids with the supply list every year, and most of my kids never touch them, like the stuff that I sent. So just, little plug, be really thoughtful in making the supply list. Anyway, in regard to remote instruction, is the expectation that the teacher, for lack of a better term, the live teacher, the teacher who's teaching in the classroom, will also be in charge of remote schooling, of the remote instruction, remote students?
Only if they're synchronous. So if this is a student who's following the schedule and is logging in at the same time the class is, then yes, that teacher would still be instructing that student. But if the student's on their own schedule and their own time frame, no, they can't teach the same lesson twice. So either the students are going to be logging in from home at the time of the class, following along with the class, and they will be on, the alternate day schedule as well as, everybody else, or they would be doing it fully remotely through VLAX or another method.
Okay, an asynchronous option that the teacher doesn't have to manage.
Correct.
Will we have any supports in place for just to help teachers manage that sort of extra? I realize it's synchronous, but it's still sort of adding another layer to their job. And I just remember, again, in some of those guiding documents saying things about, can we make sure that teachers aren't doing double duty? You know what I mean?
We're trying to work in some extra prep and professional development time into the schedule.
And for MES, our staffing, because of the amount of one-on-ones and so forth, we do have additional staff. So if a student has a one-on-one and that student is in that day, if a para would be working, one of the things we talked about with MES staff is that if there are students, live streaming and watching and checking in, that the paras that are assigned to those classrooms would be monitoring those kids. So if any questions came up, they could answer the questions to those kids, like during the class, or bring it to the attention of the teacher.
Paul, did you have a question?
I guess so are we right now still discussing the options we have available, or have we made a selection as to what we're doing? Because we're talking a lot about the 50% and half the students here. Have we decided that we're doing like a hybrid?
No, I think when we go through all of them, the recommendation from the administration is to start with a hybrid. That's our recommendation. But we are going through all three models. The first one is basically remote. So this is mostly what the hybrid is going to look like. And then the third option, it would just be we're back to school.
Right.
So we're going through all three of them.
Okay, so just as a side note to the hybrid model, would like 50% of the students are in school, the other 50% are going to be home. Is it going to be, I guess the thing is, like, I have 4 kids here going to school that did it remotely, and I don't know why that some kids were good at it, some were not so good at it. And I think that's feedback we've got from, multiple parents. It depends on the student. Is there a way to do, like we're doing tonight, a Zoom style class where these students stay engaged and they do their work, and if they have questions, basically a school environment, but not being directly in school? Have we brought that up as part of this whole globe of things we're going to do?
Yep, we talked to teachers about, because they'll be teaching the kids live one day, and then they will have work for them to work on at home the next day, and then they're back live with them. And there are case manager and para support for kids on the day that they're at home. We have talked to them about, you're teaching all of your kids every day. It's just half of them are in front of you and half of them are remote zoomed in with you. And they just feel like that would be just super difficult to do, to be trying to manage an entire class of kids, the kids in front of them, as well as this whole Zoom group. Having a few kids who are doing it, fully remote, that are doing it live stream, they think, that will still be difficult, but they think that's easier to do than to try to be teaching every single kid every day with half of them remote and half of them in front of them.
Okay.
With kids being also that, as you said, some were really good at it, some weren't. We did feel that we were losing kids, and we were really trying to work with the parents, reaching out to them. But the difference with this is that they may be remote one day, but the next day they won't. They'll be back in front of us, so we can intervene more.
Okay.
So I think we would look to assist those students that are still remote.
I just have one more question before Emily. I see Emily's got her hand up. So the hybrid, would it be in like every other week or like an every other day thing? I think John may have answered it. Is it every other day they come to school and the other days they're remote, or is it like 1 week on, 1 week off?
We reached out to the staff on that too. Do you want kids on and off? They would prefer the every other day, because otherwise they don't have the kids for a whole week.
Okay.
And again, while they're teaching live, it's hard to also be reaching out remotely. So case managers and paras can do that, but teachers aren't going to have the time to be teaching a class and teaching a remote class, separately. So right now they're preferring the every other day than the week. However, all of the kids in your household will be on the same schedule.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Paul,
I met Earl.
you bring up 2 good points. Number one, as John said, we're presenting all the models to you. In the end, we're making our recommendation. The one that obviously is new, although 10% of the kids are going July and August, is the hybrid, is number 2. That is the one that is the most intricate. That is the one that the administration is recommending, and the task forces are, and that that is the one we need to tweak. And going back to your point, you'll be always Monday and Wednesday for cohort 1. You will always be Tuesday and Thursday for cohort 2. Once after tonight, we get some understanding and some guidance and support from the board, if that is the way the board wants to go. In terms of the hybrid, we need to work some things out in terms of all the 10 areas that we talked about. But specifically with this one, the Friday, the last day of the week, the 5th day, as you remember, as we did fully remote, we went to the Friday as the day of mental and emotional health and so forth, and relieving the stress of the home and doing the remote. Now we have a lot of things we're looking at. John and Jan are explaining what the instructional committee has kind of come up with. The teachers have expressed some thoughts, but based upon what we're looking at starting in the case of simplicity, because we're only assuring that we would do the 1 month in September in the hybrid, and then see if, hopefully things don't get bad that we have to go to remote. But we're cautiously optimistic, and we'd like to try to go toward fully immersing the kids. But going back to your point, Paul, it might almost make sense as we get going in the first month, if there are those students that do not flourish in the remote, we might want to bring a lot of them in as the staff and Jan and some of the administrations talked about, almost cohort 3, which would be those students, the Rob Quad special ed students, and also the students that don't do as well with the remote as do the in-person the last day of the week. So, but that is in the detail, and that's going to take work, and that's going to take organizing. The downside of that, and I don't want to get going tangentially, is that now the spread, you're getting out of the spread, you're mixing more of the kids, but we can make those decisions. But the point you raised, Paul, is something we should take into consideration, that maybe that 5th day, one of the criteria, one of the things we should look at is trying to group a 3rd cohort, so to speak, of those students that styles in which they learn do not work as well in the remote. So does that answer you, Paul?
That answers the question good. That fills in a lot of gaps.
We're also
Thank you.
looking at, individually too, like for example, the partner program, our kids with high special needs, maybe bringing them every single day, because if they're working independently, basically self-contained with their ABA tutor and so forth, they probably could come in every day and then join the cohorts on their cohort day.
I know there's people got their hands up. I'm going to Emily, Tammy, and then Peg. Emily?
Okay. Sort of on the lines of what Paula was asking, because I think it's important to have an idea of what the remote days would look like if you want us to weigh in on sort of what our preference is. So, and I know you don't have all the specifics, but yeah, like, and Jan sort of touched on this a little bit. It's sort of like if your on day is instructional and your off day is sort of working on what you had instruction for. I'm wondering if it's maybe we'll be working on a little bit of like a project-based learning model, so that kids are working on maybe not so many, just fewer busy work things, but maybe longer things they can take their time doing and enjoying using the instruction they received on the other days. Or is it going to look like it looked on remote learning, where it was just another day of assignments? So kind of, I'd love to have a little bit of an idea of what the non-instructional days would look like. And I'm also curious on the Fridays, because I'm always on the Fridays, I'm curious what it would look like for teachers, because I'm wondering that teachers could have a little leeway on Friday too, because we're asking so much of them. And I realize students may need to access them, but I was wondering if we could make it where they're only, you have to make an appointment. So it's not like they just have to be available to students all day long. More like if you know you're going to need your teacher on Friday to do XYZ catch up, you need to set an appointment time. I'm just trying to think of balancing what we're asking of teachers as well. Does any of that make sense?
A quick little, one of the models we're looking at, and like I said, we're just starting now that we have the guidelines, meeting with the instructional committee. One of the things we looked at that came up is that, like a Monday, if I'm cohort A, I come in on Monday, I'm having direct instruction from the teacher, so forth and so on. On Tuesday, the teachers have posted follow-up lessons, practice that go with that lesson. I'm talking MES. I want to talk all school-wide, I mean district-wide. So that would be the supports and the lessons that supported the learning that was done the day before. So then as cohort A, I come back in on Wednesday. And then Thursday, the same thing, for that support for that lesson. Now Friday, what we're looking at is a gold. We have a gold group and a purple group. So it's either if you're in a gold group, you're going to come in 3 days a week or 2 days a week. So the Friday would be, if it's a gold week, they would be coming in, and that's the day we would be working on the wellness piece, the love organization curriculum. We do have NWEA testing that we are considering doing. We do have to do the SAS baseline testing. We have new mandatory training in suicide prevention and bullying training that we do every year. That's what we would do on those Fridays. This is September now, just looking at September. That's what we're looking to maybe do on those Fridays. And as far as giving, alleviating some time for teachers, we might propose Friday, an earlier release day, not full, might be earlier, just to give the teachers some planning time. That is
Right.
come down the line.
See, one of the things though, and the commissioner spoke about this today, and we would have to look into. We're still subject to fulfilling the state requirement for the amount of time students are in school, the hours they're in school. So you have to fulfill one of those models. So if we release students and release staff, their instructional hours, they would have to still be considered remote. Whatever it is, they would have to be instructional hours that students spend, or we wouldn't fulfill our requirements to get the aid that we need. So whatever plan we eventually do, or however we delineate that day, the state has to approve it to the DOE and say, this is what we're doing. Does this count as the hours of instruction to fulfill the requirements? So there are a lot of details in this, and the spirit of what we're trying to do, I totally agree with all of it, but there's some parameters. There's not only health and safety parameters, but there's state requirements in fulfilling the amount of time. Did that explain that?
And what we're looking at too, is also that we do have early release days in September that were scheduled already in the schedule. And
Not September.
Not September, is it October? No,
November. November's first one.
So we're looking at some of the early release days that we have already scheduled and maybe using them for the Fridays, which I said, this is all in discussion. We are also looking at the hours that we have to, the instruction hours we need to, attain.
And for Newt, what we're looking is on that alternate day, they could do some project-based, but I hate calling it busy work. Like sometimes it's practice. If I'm learning how to solve an equation with two variables, I'm not going to pick that up right away. I need to do some practice. So they are going to be doing some practice at home, but yes, we are looking at making it more project-based, but if it's a really good project-based assignment, they're not going to finish it in one day anyway. So they could be starting it in class, be continuing working on it at home. They could then come back the next day and get help. Our Fridays, again, we're having a lot of different plans on Fridays, but what we'd like to, at least for Newt, is have kids in at least for a half day, again, on an alternate Friday, and that's where they're getting some additional support. We have advisory time that we're going to be working on the social emotional learning and bullying pieces, but kids can be getting some additional support on that Friday, at least for a half day, and then the teachers can get some extra time that Friday afternoons to do their preparation, to do their planning, and to get some additional PD for them on what's the best way to be doing remote learning, what's the best platforms to use, how am I helping my students with the trauma of being here, not being here, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of work that they have to get done for this tour.
We are looking at, our WIN groups, if people understand that term from the elementary school, which is the What I Need. Rather than doing them daily, that would be our big WIN group, would be on a Friday, as well as all the other things that we're talking. So that's the additional support.
Okay.
We are going to go to Tammy and then to Peg. Tammy?
So my question is, you have the remote learning and then you also have the in-school learning. So how do, if a child has a question or does not understand what they're doing, how are the teachers going to answer that?
Are you saying on the alternate day? So they're in class, they're having instruction, they're getting all their questions answered, they're starting work on things. The second day they're doing more work. They still can email the teacher, but remember the teacher's teaching. They certainly can still email the teacher, and then they're back in school the next day.
But I'm trying to grasp my head around this. As far as they're doing it online, can they talk like we're talking now? I have a question. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so you're talking a student who's completely remote?
Yes.
Okay, so the student who's completely remote, if they're synchronous, they are doing like what we're doing the day of instruction. So let's say they're assigned to a gold group. So on a gold day, if they're synchronous, then they are live streaming with their teachers while the teachers are teaching the class. They can ask questions. They're going to be doing the same classwork that the class in front of the teacher is doing. They're involved in the class just through a Zoom or a Google Hangout. And then they're on the same at-home day the next day, going into Google Classroom, getting any extra instruction they need, getting the assignment, completing to work on what they were doing the day before. And then the next day, they're back zoomed into the class again. So they're following the same purple or gold schedule of the cohorts. They're just doing it remotely.
And at MES, we could enlist our paras to do
I want Peg to
answering and so forth.
Peg.
Okay, just a couple things that were brought up that I have severe questions. And they were actually brought up by Earl. So the same lesson, I am the teacher, I am doing the same lesson on Monday and Tuesday, and then a different lesson Wednesday and Thursday to two different groups. So Monday I'm doing it to the purple group, Tuesday I'm doing it to the gold group, correct? And
yeah,
then,
and I don't want to say it's exactly the same because the kids in front of you are going to be different, but
all right,
yes.
well, I mean, it's
the same content, yes.
Thank you. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to start something new that's related to Monday and Tuesday. But anyway, what Earl said was coming up with a third cohort who would go to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I don't see how this, and don't even jump in there, Earl, how this third cohort would work in, because that kid would be going to school, getting the same lesson on Monday and Tuesday, and then getting the same, well.
So we're not mixing cohorts. So if there was a cohort C, that would be a student who needed extra help. So they would be in class, let's say Monday. They would then maybe be with their case manager or a para getting that extra help on Tuesday. They would not be in the class.
Thank
we're not
you.
mixing
That answers
cohorts.
that.
Okay.
Thank you, Jan. The
And
other question.
When I said I mentioned the partner program, that's the whole
Yeah,
different program.
I understand that too. My other question was, and this was an answer to Paul with 4 kids at home, and what Earl said earlier about doing a cohort Milton Mills. Let's say Paul has 2 elementary kids and 2 or middle school and a high school kid.
Same day.
Same day, but buses?
Well, what we're looking at is, and this came from the teachers, because we're looking to split up the cohorts. And Tracy Kimball, who's a new teacher with us, had a suggestion, and we kind of liked it. We're kind of running with it, that rather than just splitting the kids up and trying to figure who's with what family, if we split it up by bus runs. So, for example, for us, let's say that we have one day cohort is the Patriots and the Bruins. So all 4 buses would be running, doing the Patriots and Bruins run.
For elementary.
For elementary and for.
I mean, at different times. That's my question is,
Right.
they're going to be at different times. So Paul's kids in all 3 levels would be picked up and they would go to school on exactly the same day, but the elementary kid, the middle high school would be picked up first, and then the elementary. So we still have the 2 bus runs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
But 4 bus runs for the two bus routes.
Right.
2 bus routes divided into 4 buses. Yep.
Hey, Earl?
But regardless of whether we get all the mills together, for example, Paul's family or all of your families, what cohort we're in, will go to school the same day.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Earl. I understand that. My question was, I'm going to Milton Mills. I'm a bus driver. Am I picking up all the kids? Are we now changing the starting time for? Okay, good. Issue is dead.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, Earl. What else you got?
Okay, so the next part
So
was adjustment to,
We're still with Jan and John.
Yes, let them go.
we got 2 pages left. All right. So adjustments to procedures. So one thing, there will be no school trips in September. And then we will reevaluate that by month. And talking with the attorney, again, we asked about when can people be kind of forced to quarantine. So this was the directive he got, and this was based on New Hampshire and CDC guidelines. If people travel outside of New England, so I decide to go to New York City for Labor Day weekend, or a student needs to go, say they want to go on a college visit, not that any colleges are doing that right now. They could not be in a building or on a bus for 14 days from the date of their return or until they get a negative COVID test. If people have unexplained COVID symptoms, same thing. If they're asymptomatic, but they're in close contact, a family member or somewhere where they were at, of someone suspected or confirmed with COVID, or if they themselves are symptomatic and have COVID. So all of those would need to self-quarantine for 14 days or until they had a negative COVID test, which New Hampshire right now is still, we had a family take a test on Thursday and they got their results on Monday. But I know they're saying sometimes it could be up to 7 or 10 days. Those are his recommendations on people not coming into the building. You guys have any questions on that?
No, this letter that the attorney wrote, who has a copy of it?
It's not a letter. We took his language and put it, it's in where it says adjustments to procedures.
What page is it on? On your pages?
Let me, of our page,
Maybe.
here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
One of them deals with the math.
9. Here at the bottom of page 9.
One of them deals with the masks and one of them deals with the quarantine.
Yep, so it's under adjustments to procedures.
Yeah, the one where if a student is not wearing a mask.
So what do we have to look at or adopt for policy then? The language.
I think you're accepting that if somebody left New England, if they have COVID symptoms, if they're asymptomatic but they're around someone with COVID, or if they themselves have COVID, that they need to self-quarantine for 14 days or until they have a negative test.
Correct. And the hot spot may change, but regardless, whatever that hot spot is, they would be on that auspices.
So is there any way that we can have this document written by the next meeting Like requiring
Yeah.
masks?
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? I think we-
I'm sorry, there'll be a couple of things, but we're just introducing you to what it
Okay.
is and getting your input
Okay.
and then come back because we haven't really, like Paul said, somebody said, we haven't fully made a decision on the in-person. And with the in-person, you do have to approve certain things once we agree that we want to try, we want to get kids back.
But we, as a board, we need to discuss another issue that's important to this whole process.
Correct.
That's MES.
Yeah.
and
We'll
also
do that.
as far as-
If we do that as
Annie, no.
soon as the instruction part is done.
Yeah, well, we can discuss it after everything else is done, yeah.
Okay.
Now, just
Okay.
also to keep in mind that policy, when we use the word policy is to develop a policy is a long process. You have the first reading, so forth. I think that probably, and we could talk to the attorney about this, the best way to implement this is that you guys approve our handbooks every year. And Jen and I talked about having a COVID addendum in our handbooks and where we would lay these rules out and like if you've traveled, and also our staff handbooks. So if you approve the staff handbooks, then you're approving the procedures that we put in place.
Protocols and procedures. Yep.
Protocols and procedures.
But the problem is, this is an emergency. So I think the guidelines would change for an emergency. I don't
But I
see,
think if you approve, if we're gonna have a fleshed out reopening plan for you at the next board meeting that will include all this and you approve the reopening plan, then I think you've approved it.
Because it's a protocol, because there's a difference between a policy and a protocol, and I think that this is the best way to implement it, is that it's in our handbooks and it's a written plan that you approve. So this, and
Yeah,
I,
here's why. Why don't I check with the school? I'll check with the school and we'll do whatever he says, but we'll do it at the next school board meeting. Okay? Okay, Doug?
well, I mean, that's a question that needs to be answered.
Correct. Correct.
All the policies that we need to look at
Yes.
for changes, they're in the handbook.
Correct.
Anybody else?
John, Jan, do you want to complete the report on the?
That's ready.
Yep.
Okay. Next section was special needs students. Again, diverse learners. I'm going to have Qua speak to the meeting part, but again, case managers, paraprofessionals, and guidance counselors will be working with our students both when they're in the school and remotely when they're at home. The partner program students will attend every day, and then Qua, if you want to talk about the IEP meetings.
No, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want it to be a thing. We have been ordered to conduct meetings with every single IEP team in the district by 30 September in order to discuss whether or not there are any replacement services that we would need to provide. In some cases, I think that's absolutely the case. The logistics of just those meetings is still being determined right now. But those will be important conversations to have with families and IEP teams in order to determine how we can make up some ground lost during this time, especially in the spring when some of our kiddos had a tough time.
Then our CTE students, right now, our CTE centers have not decided whether they're going to be accepting sending students. They haven't even finalized their own reopening plans. Their next meeting is August 6th. Our guidance counselors join them for their meetings. So CTE students are a little bit on hold, what kind of schedule they will have based on what the CTE centers are doing. And then the last piece on that is just getting a baseline understanding of our student learning. The state is requiring us to test grades 4 through 8 for the statewide assessment system interim tests. The dates for that are between September 22nd and November 1st, so we're going to aim for October. And our grade 12 students, incoming grade 12 who didn't take the SAT last spring, will be scheduled to take that. I believe it's October 14th. So we will schedule those tests. But then John wants to talk about.
Okay, Tammy's got a question. What's
I'm
your
sorry.
question?
It's just quick. Somebody was asking about 14 days about the negative COVID test. What if a parent travels? What do they do? with that.
Travels for work, you mean, or travels for pleasure, or?
Travels for work. Like they're gone for 2 weeks and then come back, and then they're gone again and then come back.
He didn't say parents, he said the students. So I think if they're taking safety precautions at home, but we can readdress that with the attorney, but the attorney was really only looking at the students or staff members, not parents.
I think the parents, if they're in a position where, or a profession where they're traveling, I'm sure that their companies are hopefully, implementing procedures as well about safe travel and what they need to do when they come back home, just like, our frontline workers and nurses and so forth, when they go to work, they have to come home, and if they feel they're exposed, I'm sure they quarantine themselves or their families.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
part of the education and training that we would like to have to implement also not only for our staff, but for our families too.
Mhm.
Okay, so professional development, I'll talk about the professional development piece. When the governor announced his guidelines, he said that we could add additional days for professional development, taking some student days. So I think there's an adjustment to the calendar. So we are looking to utilize that governor directive by postponing students coming back into school till after Labor Day, but using the PD time that week before Labor Day for staff. If you think of our regular PD that we do with staff when they come back in during a regular school year, we have a meeting with every single teacher in the room. So we don't want to bring them in and talk about social distancing all combined in a room. So we need to start adjusting that. So all of our PD will not be done by large group. We would have to do them individually. And also a part of the teacher contract is one of those days, or most of the second day, is classroom prep. Well, what is classroom prep this year? And it's so different than what it would be in the past. So just to look at some of the highlights of some of the things that we need to work on, we've listed just a whole bunch of different things. But I think one of the most important things is the COVID-19 training. I think that Jen and I are attending a Primex webinar tomorrow, and I'm sure hopefully that they do have some training for staff, like they do with the bullying training and the the bloodborne pathogens and so forth. So hopefully they're setting up some sort of training, and they will give us some guidance. But unfortunately, I think that one of the things that with this COVID-19 is that it has become sometimes a political issue, and there are people with different opinions. And I think that we need to give the training. We're not trying to convince people one way or the other, but I think we need to make sure that we, as a staff, we're in consensus, that we're all operating in one, under one philosophy. I don't call it philosophy, or one procedure, that we understand what the importance of certain masks are, and why we're doing the masking, why we're doing what is COVID-19, why we're taking these procedures, just so we have that consensus. And I think that that's going to take a good deal of time, and I think that needs, the needs are there. Also, we have some new staff. We want to train them on, like, just even how to use Google Classroom and Zoom. So we want to make sure that that's all done. We have new Title IX rules. We have new bullying training. These are all new trainings that we have to do for staff. So I just think that, you could look through the list. I could read through the list if you'd like, but there is a lot that's going on. So we are proposing an adjustment to the calendar, implementing the governor's guidelines. So this would be for every single model that we follow, whether it's remote, whether it's model 1, 2, or 3. We would like to increase professional development for teachers at the beginning of the school year.
Ed?
Well, that Doug, going back to
Earl.
Oh,
Peg.
sorry.
Peg. You're muted, Peg.
Sorry, Annie was barking. One of the things, emergency lesson plans, which I totally understand, but staff absences could be on the increase. I guess my concern would be subs, subs coming in during COVID-19. I don't know. I just want to throw that out there that, yes, I totally understand that we probably are going to have some sick teachers this year, but I think the contingency plan needs to be put into effect.
Yes, that's a good question. Paras are going to try to be used as much as we can. Right, John? Isn't that what
Yeah,
you're
I think
planning?
that's part of what we're looking and why we want the detailed lesson plans and the emergency plans, so that our paraprofessionals, as much as possible, can, so we're not bringing in new people into the building that don't know the procedures, using them as much as possible to implement that. And I think that staff absences are a concern, because even if they're not that sick, if they do have to take a test, that will keep them out longer.
Yep. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that there's a contingency type of plan. So paras are good.
I can say it new, most of our pairs are one-on-ones, so we can't have them do that. But we do have a couple other positions that you'll, see tonight too, that
I saw one.
that can help with that. And if the teachers are just quarantining but healthy, they could still be teaching remotely from home. We just have to have somebody supervising the room to help. So we are looking at different ways to try to cover classrooms if teachers have to be remote or they're sick and they can't teach. So trying to balance that. But again, I can't take a one-on-one pair to cover a class. So we'll do some different things. That most of the pairs at Newt are one-on-one.
Emily?
I think we have to keep a reasonable perspective on what we can expect. Just like when you go to the doctor or anywhere, they ask you a list of questions and they take your temperature, and so we just follow safety protocols for substitute teachers, and we say I think the governor said something about people coming into the building would have to wear a mask the whole time, like people coming in from the outside. So where our teachers might be able to take them off when they're distanced, a substitute, I'm sorry, you just have to wear it all day, at least unless we determine you're a long-term sub or something. I just think, there's only so much we can do, and we have to be reasonably cautious.
Yeah, because everything takes a life of its own. I mean, we could wind up with a 1,000-page thing by the time we're done, Emily.
Right.
Going back to what John said, Doug, we do need board approval to amend the school calendar according to the governor's things about the days we're going to use. So that would affect, if we're doing, that would affect the start of school. John, do you want to give from what the instruction committee came up with the task force?
So what we look at is the professional development will be a combination of remote PD as well as in school professional development for staff, because there are things like the bloodborne pathogens and the bullying training that is an online Primex training that can be done remotely. Teachers can do that from home, so we would have a schedule. So it'd be almost like we're doing a hybrid model for a staff. So rather than having all the staff congregate into the cafeteria all at once, we might have one day where they're doing remote professional development and the other half are in, just to minimize. So, which is another reason the need for the day. So we would start on August 26th, which is the first contract teacher day. And that teacher professional development will go to September 3rd, which is that Thursday. And then on September 8th, which is voting day, we can have students in. It would be a no school day for teachers and for students. So we're going to have to we won't have school on that day because they're voting at the high school. And then students' first day back to school would be September 9th for cohort A, and then September 10th for cohort B.
So
Now-
would you like me?
I got a question, Peg. You're talking about 3 days that he's added extra to the calendar, the governor.
Correct, Doug.
All right, okay. Now, I think Emily and then Peg had their hands up.
Is the calendar in here?
No, there's under professional development.
The dates. We just put the dates. We didn't make a calendar.
Right there.
Oh, okay. So, I'm gonna understand if we're making a motion to start on the 9th or to approve a whole new calendar. Okay,
No.
okay, got it. So
It's not changing the end date, so the governor in saying we need these 3 extra days there, we do not have to push the calendar back 3 days.
got it. In that case, I'll make a motion to approve it unless somebody has more
No, I'll
questions.
second that.
But I want, what are the dates exactly you're gonna take?
August 26th. So go ahead. Go ahead.
August 26th, 27th, we still will have the 28th off, 29th and 30th are the weekends, and then August 31st, September 1st, September 2nd, September 3rd.
It's on page 10 in the document, Doug.
So we're gonna get a new calendar then.
Once you vote on, if you accept this, it'd just be the beginning part. Just September would be affected.
So 26, 27, 31, 1, 2, 3.
For teacher professional development, and students start on September 9th.
I got that, okay. I
Isn't
haven't,
it the same one that I just posted?
Yes. Oh, it's not?
Well, if you posted the school calendar, no.
No,
School
it was a
calendar,
new one.
school calendar had students starting on August 31st.
Well, it didn't. Oh, yeah, they were blank. Yes, you're correct. Sorry. Yes.
so we all set, okay? Aye. Peg,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
I don't,
Okay,
wait a minute, wait a minute.
is she back?
Is she,
No.
Melissa, are you there?
Okay, Melissa texted me earlier. She had to go back to work. I did not know that we were voting on anything right away. If we were, she said, let her know and she'd come back. Do we need her vote for this?
No, not if we got four votes, no,
Okay,
passed.
all right.
So the next thing we need to know is the board agreeable, and this is Melissa to let her know, is the board agreeable to start September with model number 2, which is the hybrid, as we've discussed it?
I think we need to talk about MES first.
Oh, you're correct. Let's talk about MES. You're correct, Doug.
Okay, Bob,
sorry.
you wanna tell them what we found out today? On MES.
I will. We had the weekly construction meeting today at Milton Elementary. Doug Shute attended that meeting, as well as John Safina and myself. We had originally requested that all work be complete by August 7th. And we cannot do that because, in particular, the main component of the system, the air handler machine itself, originally when we started the work back in, which would have been just after the 4th of July, the lead time had grown to 16 weeks. So that was negotiated to pull it back in to be a 10-week lead time, but it means that the air handler will not be available until we get into September. So having said that, I still was pushing for having all of the classroom work done and all of the hallway work done for installation of all of the ductwork that would be connected then to that air handler, so that my team could do their normal summer cleaning, to be followed by the teachers being able to come back and set up their rooms. So what we found out today is all but 2 of the rooms I should be able to get back by August 7th. The other 2 rooms would be a week later, August 14th. So at least occupying the room still precedes our first date of teachers being wanting to come back under contract.
But I want the board to realize, we're not gonna have the air handler.
But we won't need it right exactly the first day of school. Well, I mean, it's more of a, I understand it's for air circulation, but once heating comes into play, that's when we'll really start to need it, correct?
I did talk to, that was the question I asked about the air quality. How is it gonna affect? They said if if the windows are open, it's not, like you said, Paul, it's more once the heating comes in and so forth, it shouldn't affect it shouldn't affect the air we should not have poor air quality in September.
Okay.
That's what he said.
But the other issues that you gotta deal with, I heard that also. Then if you're gonna be installing that unit later on in the year, you're probably gonna be doing it during vacations, so there's gonna be noise.
Yeah, what we're looking at, Bob and I talked about it, is that we're, that first teacher workshop day, the October 9th and the Columbus Day weekend, is that when they would install it? There are a couple of days where it would be noisy, and then other days where they could be working in the building and students would be there. So MES would come back with, during that first week in October, which is a time where we talked with I talked with Bob and construction people, that this is a good transition time, because this is when we'll be reevaluating if we go with Model 2. Transition, are we going to be transitioning to start bringing the students back in fully, or are they going to be fully remote, or are we going to stay with Model 2? So that's our transition period. So it may be a good time if we had to keep students out for a day or two remotely to get the construction in there. I hear Doug's concerns as well, but I would hate for us to not be able to occupy the building in September.
Tammy?
I just have one of the parents saying that the NEA documents say that all air systems need to be working on day one. I don't know if we want to look into that to double check, to make doubly sure.
Emily, did you have your hand up too?
Well, yes, but I think Tammy's question precedes what I was going to ask, if that makes sense.
Bob?
I wanted to say that when John and I filled out our annual report, we had identified in that report that we no longer had a working air handler on the first floor. So certain members of the state are well aware of that. This project, because it included the second floor air handler, we had demoed that, so that is not running either. So those those 6 classrooms on each floor for a total of 12 would end up having the same environment theoretically in the September time of the year as any other part of our campus that does not have an air handler.
Because it's not, the air handlers aren't the entire building of MES. It's that one section, because the old building doesn't have any air handler access, right? The 1914 wing.
Correct.
So I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, Bob.
What I'm saying is that the state knows that we didn't have a working air handler. They also know that we have a project to install a new one. And it's not, and we haven't completed it yet.
Yeah, but
They
wasn't the
came in at beginning-
proposal?
They came in December. Was it December, Bob, that we had a building inspection? We passed the building
Yes.
inspection.
But wasn't the proposal to have it in before school started? Was it in August?
Not with Marjorie Shoemaker, and that's not what we talked about with her.
I guess
We didn't talk about the timing of it because there was, at one point in time, we were looking at potentially breaking the project into 2 elements, the first floor and the second floor. But that had nothing to do with the timeline of the air handler. So
I guess
we would always be caught between a rock and a hard spot on a lead time.
I guess the biggest thing is we probably want to stress, yes, I think the part of the contract said that it was supposed to be in before the opening day of school, but we can't control manufacturing processes, shortage of material, et cetera, et cetera. So when September rolls around and we can open windows throughout the school and in effect produce our own air handling system in the meantime, then we're okay as far as the coverage on that until it becomes a problem when we have to shut windows and start heating the building and start closing it off from the outdoor environment. But we are covered under that time, under the fact of we can't, we have a shortage of materials / whatever it is that's preventing us from getting it. We're still in the green as far as that goes.
And this also, I mean, we would definitely working with the, with the construction people, if we have to talk with the state or so forth, we would make sure, we're already doing that the air would be safe in the building until the air handler completely is installed. Now, if there are parents who are still not secure with what that it's not installed, they do have that option to do that first month remotely. And that would be there. So any parents who are still not sure that they want the air handler and they're still not trusting that the air is safe, they can do that for the first month. And then when we start transitioning, and that's why I think it's a good time in October, the beginning of October, we're going to start looking at the plans again and transitioning to either whether we stay with this plan or go to a new plan. Parents can then see, well, the air handler is there now, I can make a different decision.
Emily?
I think just sort of reiterating some of what John said, I think he's right. As long as we do our diligence and we know it's safe and legal to be there, parents have an option. They have the synchronous remote option, and we have a lot of flexibility because being hybrid, we are already set up for pretty seamless remote day if we need to. If we need to take a couple days for construction. As a mom, I'd rather do that than just not be able to go to school all of September.
That is, I don't think we're discussing not going to school in September.
No, but it came up saying that if the air handler is not in, then we're not allowed to start school.
Yeah, that's what we're.
We can do remote.
That's the point.
Right, that's what I'm saying. To not go into school in September seems silly when we could do a couple remote days on the day they do construction.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Emily. I think the silver lining, and you asked for the blizzard bags a long time ago.
Just saying.
Lining is now forever will never, Milton will never have a snow day again.
And actually, I was never in support of blizzard bags before because of the lack of technology for students, the lack of access for students who cannot work on their own at home. So, I think we have a good opportunity here because of the amount of snow we have and the fact that we have the technology, we can rebuild them. We can have a successful blizzard bag program rather than just a bunch of busy work that goes home to kids,
So, again, looking at the glass half full, all the work we've done, we're going to be improved when we get out of this as before we went in. So, is the air handler, is everybody feeling okay with that?
Well, we do have another issue with the air handler. Okay. Bob, more cost overruns.
But that doesn't affect the air handler, the air quality, though. I will say that.
Thank you, John. I know that, John.
I know, but everybody else does. So I want to bring that up.
People need to know that, John.
Huh?
People need to know that, John. Peg?
Yeah, I just am wondering, rather than going on to cost overrun, we still are doing the air handler.
Yeah.
Should we talk about whether we let them go ahead with Plan 2, the hybrid?
Yeah, we need to take a vote on that because we're 2.5 hours in here and we're straying again.
Yeah. And I brought Melissa back for a vote.
Hey, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to let the admin team continue working on whatever they need to work on to go with the hybrid model of 2 days in school, 2 days remote.
I'll second.
Emily, you have something?
Just to discuss a little bit, just very quickly about that option 2, the hybrid. I do support it. I think it's a good transition. I especially like the idea of trying to keep kids that live close together so that families can help support one another, working families, etc. I just want to make sort of a generic caution that we think very carefully about what the at-home options look like, and we maybe challenge ourselves to think outside of the box a little bit particularly in the younger grades, to make it more feasible at home, so that all kids that for example, I have 7 kids who are remote, who will be remote schooling, and I can't do 7 sciences and so on and so on. So just, I know that's probably more down the road when we work out details, but just trying to keep that in our mind. And particularly too, because I know, again, in that sort of guiding document, they talk about we really need to be prepared for changes all the time. We need to be prepared to go fully remote, even if that's not our intention. And so it'll be good if we're already set up in a way that makes it easier for families if we go remote. So it's not that I don't support the hybrid model. I just think we need to be really conscious of helping families succeed by being willing to do things differently. Still teaching the standards, but being willing to do things differently. So that's all.
Once you vote on this, we would then come back with the details of what the model will look like. We just need to focus as an admin team, and we need to go in one direction rather than 3.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, Peg,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Paul, yes?
Yes,
Melissa?
sir.
Melissa?
Yes, absolutely.
No for me. 4-1. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, one of the next steps is we're going to send a survey out reflecting most of what we just discussed, the outline we sent you, or we discussed tonight in the cruises, and then we're going to fully ascertain, based on the hybrid model, how many parents would be willing to send their kids to school, and also how many parents specifically will transport. So a new survey will be sent out August 1st. Am I correct, team? Jan, John?
Approximately, yeah.
I thought we were going to give them the plan first, give them a little bit of time to digest it, and then send the survey out. So definitely they get the plan by the 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, does the board want to?
Cohort groups too, right, Jan? We're looking to have the cohort groups set up.
Whew, you're killing me. Guidance still doesn't have the high school scheduling.
Okay, all right. Well, sure, but we'll work it out. We'll get it up in a timely fashion. How about that?
My goal will be to have cohorts by next Friday, yes.
Doug, one quick thing.
Go ahead, Paul. Thanks, Paul and Peg, for raising hands.
I just want to say the administrative staff did an outstanding job. I know you guys have a giant weight on your shoulders right now to get all this set up. I know now, at least from 3 down to 1, now we have a standard thing we can go with. But I mean, summer off is no summer off for the administration. I hope everybody knows that. So nice work.
Thank you,
Paul.
Thank you.
Peg?
Totally agree, Paul. Before you guys leave, I do have a question on, I don't know what page it is, but it's the Milton School District fall reopening, and we never quite talked about it, but there are 3 columns, and one is totally remote, one is hybrid, and then one is traditional, schools open. And I'm looking at the top, and I'm not quite understanding significant restrictions, low risk return is remote, but what is the meaning of high, moderate, and low risk return? Because to me, it doesn't make sense with what the.
Well, if you're remote, there's low risk of getting COVID.
Duh, thank you. Okay, that's, that answers my question.
Come on, Peg.
John knows the way Peg thinks. I know.
Poor guy.
That's the word of return. Would that help? Low risk of return? From return?
Low risk of infection, maybe. If that makes any sense, because I'm looking at it going, well, if there's a low risk, why are we doing remote?
Low risk of returning? We can change that before it goes out. What would you like it to?
Just so that it's clearer that if we're doing remote, it would be low risk of infection, of giving it off, of,
Okay,
Infection and transmission.
okay, moving on.
yes.
So can I say something real quick? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So, Jan, if you're gonna send that out, I was told that I could post this. Or do you not want me to post it yet?
Well, we're gonna make changes, so I don't want.
I think what we do is everybody knows what we do. Tammy,
Yeah,
you could post, this was the document that we discussed, but certain modifications are gonna be done.
well, I think if you do that, people are gonna get confused.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
think that
Nope.
if whatever Jan or whoever's gonna can send it to me, and then I'll post it.
Yeah, we can make the changes quickly. That's because we have to get that out as part of the cohort and survey, so
Yeah.
that can be done very quickly.
Okay, so we'll
Okay.
say, okay, thank you.
We might would it be appropriate for us to narrow it down to just the hybrid model? Now that just our model rather than having all the other models in there?
We discussed that. We're like 2.5 hours in. We could always discuss that.
Okay.
We need what's least confusing for every parent and person that reads this, obviously.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Earl, did you want us to go through transportation real quick?
I thought we already
I
did
think
earlier.
I did. I explained that the best scenario at this point is
Yep.
20 kids on the school bus. We're staying with 2 school bus runs. Tim will be here for the next time we meet, and we'll also have more of a handle on parents responding to how the amount of kids we're going to transport. The only other thing you can gloss on, I don't know if Mike is on here or not, but as far as sports goes, Jan, you can, and again, the NHIAA, it's constantly changing by the day. But Jan, can you just give them as of 8:30 tonight where the sports lies?
Yep, Micah is on, so he can speak to that.
Oh, okay, Micah, good. Thanks. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mike.
sorry about that. My internet kicked out. In terms of sports, so far, the NHIA is fully behind having a fall season of some kind. The only problem is that they don't have much of a guidance in terms of how that's going to be accomplished. Middle school, they are leaving it up, so by the sounds of it, to the on a much regional basis. That's basically how middle school operates for the most part. So they haven't touched that area much. It's the high school area that seems to be the most problematic, especially since for schools such as us, we play teams that are a decent ways away, such as Mascoma and Stevens in Claremont. There's talk of getting rid of those games to help keep schools local and playing schools in their region for transportation reasons as well as health reasons as well. So with all that information kind of out there, the general consensus is that they're hoping for some type of season. As how that's accomplished, there's no definite answer yet, besides the possibility of a 2-week delay, much like Massachusetts announced recently for the fall season. That might be brought into New Hampshire as well. I know that they just pushed back the deadline for our fall schedules to be published and sent in. So the fact that that happened may lead to the fact that we are going to have a delayed season and possibly even a shortened season for the sports that we offer at the high school level. So right now we're still kind of in limbo. They've sent out like a 2.0 version of return to play where they classify the different sports in terms of level of basically contractibility, like high, medium, and low. And with high school offering in just the Newt side of things, our fall sport varsity being just volleyball, I believe that's in the medium range. Football, however, is in the high, and then we do participate in Farmington's program. So that's something that I need to discuss with their AD. So that's where kind of like where we stand. It's an ever-evolving situation. The one thing I did want to bring to the board though was that I spoke with the AD at Farmington, and they, the AD, Eric Larkham, has proposed to his board a plan to get his fall sports up and running, in particular his football team, so that they can start their conditioning practices and organization for whatever season that they might have. Their board approved it. He just needs to meet with his coaches so that they can set up a schedule, and then he is going to contact me to let me know what that is. Included in that proposal was a procedure that they are going to use for students who want to play, such as a medical check-in, such as a basically a thermometer, much like we talked about with students basically coming back to school. So make sure that they are healthy enough to play their sport and not bringing any type of illness to the team. Once that's all cleared by him, he's going to pass that on to me, and then we will discuss, the contract and the agreement between our two schools for sending our football players to Farmington. That's basically kind of where sports is. It's an ever-evolving day-to-day situation from the NHIA to each school in different counties.
What date are they going to start football so the board here could approve the contract? That they can't approve it now because they haven't seen it, or is our next, we meet again on August 12th, Doug?
Yes, yep.
That might be around when they start. I know that the first official date for some sports in the fall is usually around the second or third week in August, but that's just strictly conditioning. Some sports are allowed even earlier, but those don't apply to us. So in terms of football, normally I believe the first date to practice was in the late teens of August, whether it's like 16th or the 18th. I can't quite remember. That's also, that might not even apply though, because that depends on the NHIA giving the athletic directors the handbook of the upcoming year. And those parts change as to reflect the calendar. So that date hasn't officially been given yet.
Thanks, Mike. It sounds to me we'd be all right on August 12th to have all the info to the board in light of the COVID thing. It's not going to be detrimental to our kids, and at the same time, it allowed the administration and the board to really know what we're getting ourselves involved with. I mean, I'm totally for it. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but at least we know what we're going to approve. How does the board feel?
I wanted to ask about summer conditioning. So there are many schools who are already doing conditioning because that has been approved by the NHIA. So like outside teams like soccer are out conditioning, doing skill drills, bringing their own ball from home or using just one, nobody sharing any balls, so that there's no cross-contamination. They can still do their conditioning 6 feet apart from each other. Inside, there are places that have weight rooms and things open for volleyball. Again, they could have reduced numbers inside. They can't share a ball either, but they could still be practicing bumping, serving. The coach could be throwing a ball up with a glove on, and they could still be practicing spiking. But again, conditioning is the big thing that a lot of schools are doing because this is the off-season, basically sports camp time. There are softball, baseball, and lacrosse camps going on across New England. So part of my question is, is it possible for us to start doing some conditioning for volleyball inside in small groups and soccer outside?
Moving on. I just want to bring up one thing. I think Peg and I, we're the only two that have signed this warrant for the teacher's contract.
So far.
Yeah, we need, board members, we need signatures on this warrant for the teacher's contract in order to put this out. So we only have 2.
I need to get that out, get that going tomorrow. And I'm sure Nate does too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to get that done. Okay. Now, the same numbers that we used tonight to get on this meeting is going to apply for the 12th. So don't lose your chart. You shouldn't. It's the same. Okay, moving on, school board policy, second reading.
Hold on, Doug.
Yeah,
To sign, for me to sign that, do you want me to come to your house to sign that? Because I can't get there before the SAU
you
closes.
can do that. I can get copies and do that for you.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Nate? Nate says fine.
Okay.
All right.
I think that Jan was looking for an answer. Were you looking for an answer on the volleyball and the soccer?
Yes. Is it possible to have kids start doing conditioning?
I think the board needs to.
I'll make the motion that they can start conditioning, yeah.
So was
I'll
that
second it.
you? And yes, Emily, and then Paul?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm saying no.
Peg is no.
Emily?
I'm saying yes.
Yes.
I know Little Red's already doing conditioning in June. They're spread out. They're doing the things they got to do. It's just strictly conditioning. They're not doing social contact whatsoever. It's more running and that kind of thing. They can do that outside in a completely safe manner.
So you're a yes?
Yep.
Okay, 3-2. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. First one is FEH, second reading, supervision and construction clerk of the work and project manager. Change some wording on this. So this is the second reading. So I need a
I'll
motion.
make a motion
Okay.
to approve the second reading FEH.
I'll second it. Okay. Do we want to do them all together?
Yes, please.
Yes.
All right, okay. This one is IHCD, advanced coursework, advanced placement courses, and STEM dual concurrent enrollment program.
I just had a question as to why we needed two different policies. They're exactly the same.
They said still do it.
Okay. So the only thing I have is on LEB, we have number 9 twice.
Might have changed, we'll change it. Okay, LEB, advanced, oh, same thing, and it do it on both of them?
No, on the IHCD was fine. LEB, there's number 9 on page 11 and number 9 on page 12.
Okay, advanced coursework, advanced placement courses, and STEM.
We'll have to strike number 9. One of them.
I'll tell her that. Okay.
Okay, if I can just answer Jan's question, because I keep asking that, Jan.
Okay.
But each one of these, that first letter, do you know it's a different section in the policy book?
Yeah.
So
Are they
that's
needed in
why
both
they're
places?
two. Yep, I know.
That's fine.
Wasted paper, but
Okay.
Okay. All right, I say aye. Peg?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
I'm gonna find Paul.
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
for all three. They passed.
4-3.
It's all three of them. We're doing them all at once.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I think you're counting. I'm going, huh? Never mind.
They're out of the way. Okay, it takes us out of there. Hey, Bob, you're up, air handler.
That's
Bob,
already discussed, right?
I just had to turn myself on there so I could talk.
no, it isn't
Yeah.
done yet.
Yeah, so you wanted to talk about costs, I believe, Mr.
The
Shute,
overall.
you had left off at?
Yeah,
Yeah. Let me back up a little bit from that. When we put the construction drawings out, it couldn't have in the drawings anything that was hidden because we have some places where we have sheetrock, and we would have actually had to do demo work to try and discover how the building was put together. So if any of you have done so many home projects on your homes or watched This Old House or whatnot, once you start opening up a wall or opening up a seal, and then you think, uh-oh. So anyway, we've had a couple of uh-ohs along the way. One of them was to be able to route the ductwork from downstairs air handler through the first floor. We had to relocate some electrical wires in order to do that. When we were doing the demo work in the hallway, it was first conceived that we'd be able to leave a lot of the drop ceiling up, and we were not able to do that the way the ductwork was in there. And so a lot of all of the the grates for the drop ceiling had to come down, all the structural elements. When we did that, we had a lot of additional Romex wire along with data wire, fire alarm wire, everything you can think of running through a wire. And we had to look at how it is that we're going to secure that without damaging any of that. So we did some additional work which Mr. Shute approved to reconcile both of those situations. So we spent a little bit over $2,500 doing that. That was not anticipated.
I want you to tell them about the water drainage.
Yeah. In
That-
order to, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Today, when we were looking at the result of the excavation work that we needed to do in the playground area, between the playground and the half basketball court that we have, we had trouble getting enough of a pitch so that the new doorway that needed to be lowered a good like 11 to 12 inches wouldn't receive water from rain and melting snow. So we come up with an idea collectively on putting in drainage out there with two, I'll call it just manhole covers, to be able to collect rainwater, melt off and the like, and be able to shoot that off into the existing swale on the side street next to the playground. So we'll be getting a cost on that I'll be asking Mr. Shute to approve.
And just to kind of throw in a pitch for that air handler or not, that becomes like an ice skating rink in the winter for the playground. This would be a big improvement, especially for the use of the playground in the winter overall. So just it's not a bad thing.
Okay, Bob?
Yes.
Peg, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Peg,
I just had a quick question. This 2,500, I want to say that maybe, and I honestly do not remember, that when we approved the last big increase for the air handler, that we might have added something in for, what do you call it, overage, a certain percentage for overage? Did we?
No, there was no contingency at the time approved by the board.
Okay, so this is in addition to everything and, okay, just checking, thank you.
Okay.
well, what I can do is, once I get that other estimate on the drainage, I can bring it to the board on the 12th if they get it in time. Okay, go ahead, Bob, moving on.
Okay. Anything else in the air handler, or you wanted me to roll?
Roll.
Okay. On the pavement, we have that scheduled to start August 11th. In order to do that, I need to relocate the construction dumpster. They'll do that for the air handler. So there's some juggling of that and their building entry into the building as well too, which I'll take care of. But anyway, those projects, the pavement projects include the K-loop and the culvert, the upper culvert on Elm Street. And it also includes, within the K-loop, a return that goes approximately halfway into the modular. And so that covers then the back door, which we use as a main entrance for the little ramps. The second piece of that ends up being the exit at the elementary school. And so it starts at the top of the parking lot and enters and finishes at Elm Street. And then the third piece is at Old Newt, right alongside Old Newt. And if anyone's tried to drive to the front of the building, and a lot of us out there have, we have a lot of potholes. That pavement's just totally shot. So that's why we're replacing that. Any questions on those?
Peg?
Like, yeah, Elm Street, you mentioned everything goes out to Elm Street.
No, I meant school. You're right. Thank you. Super.
Okay. Moving on, Bob.
Next, grease trap. I have that scheduled to start August 10th. So that looks good. That's on schedule. Fire alarm systems, we're still working on the documentation. So when we get that through and finally get state approval, then we'll be looking for sweet vacation days through the year to work on those projects. And we still have Newt listed as first, the priority.
That it? Anybody have any questions for Bob? Moving on. None? Nate, you want to mention about the manifest needs to be signed?
Yeah, the manifest needs to be signed.
That's
Good job, Nate.
Nice work, Nate.
Work.
All right. Committee reports, any?
I guess I have one.
Peg?
I know everybody here knows, and hopefully everybody out there, but we did present the teacher contract, the collective bargaining agreement, to the budget committee. And after many questions and many explanations, they did vote 8-0 in approval of it. So the next step is the deliberative session, which is scheduled for August 16th, sometime in August. And then will be voted on.
August 11th.
Pardon? August 11th? Okay, thank you. And then will be voted on during the primary election on September 8th. So we're just in hopes that it continues forward. And with everything that the teachers, I mean, if you were listening to the expectations again for this fall, hopefully this will go forward and they will actually have a contract and go forward. So anyway, so I want to just thank the budget committee.
Now, the other question that did come up by Humphrey and the board, they wanted to know if we could have the school budgets in by October. Is that not right, Peg?
Yes.
And I think, Nate, you had an answer? Nate?
Back, Nate.
This is news to me.
No, I told you about it the other day.
You did?
Yes, I did. They wanted you said you didn't think it was possible.
I do think it's possible, so it's fine.
Well, you changed your mind? Okay, that's all right.
Okay, I'm just thinking I'm working on reopening and all that, and I'm gonna put a budget together, but okay.
Go for it, Jan. You can do
It's
it.
definitely going to put pressure on us. I'm not going to deny that.
Okay, well, okay, I guess you can tell Humphrey, Nate, changed his mind, so go ahead.
Say again?
I was saying we can do it.
We will work on doing it.
We will
How's
try
that?
our best.
Yes, thank you,
All right,
thank you.
sure. Any
Um,
other committee? Oh, any more, Peg?
well, there was something that was posted today, a question from a citizen on Facebook. Were we moving forward with that committee looking into sending our students out or bringing students in? And I do have to say, one person responded very nicely. I do believe that they have enough on their plates right now that is going to be on the back burner. I mean, I did not reply, but I just thought I would throw that out, that people are still asking how that committee is coming along.
I thank that person for answering that question.
That is the answer.
Yep, with everything going on, it's like, yep.
If we're talking with other school districts, I'm sure they're working on, they're not going to want to talk with us at this time.
Nope. Okay, that's it. That's all I have.
Okay, I need a motion to go into non-public.
I will make a motion to go into non-public.
I'll second.
Oh. What time is it? I don't have the time here. Oh, 8:48. This will be under RSA 91A-32 A, B, C, L, J, and K. Douglas, yes? Peg?
Yes.
Emily? Are you sleeping, Emily?
Kind of.
Yes? Okay. You're sleeping
Yes.
or awake? Paul? Okay. Is Melissa still there?
I think Melissa has gone again.
Back to work? Okay, it's all right. Okay, we're in non-public.
Uh.
9:05.
Oh, man.
Earned your money tonight, everybody. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Who's the second? Who's that?
That was Peg.
There you go, sorry. Aye?
Those are my deep voice. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.